sounds way more complicated than it is. Hi, guys. So Irene asked me to come and talk to you guys and just tell you about like what my life experiences have been. That was a mouthful. But I figured I'm more interested in talking about you guys, frankly. So I'll do a slide on my stuff, and then I think a more useful way to do this, I put some thought into like what are the lessons that I can distill down and convey to you guys, and stuff that might be helpful. And so if we can, we'll make this interactive if you guys are up for it. I'd like to ask some questions and talk to you guys. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I call this 5 gold bars. These are like, literally I want to give you guys 5 lessons that if you take them to heart, I think they'll be more valuable than, like, if I were to offer you a choice, like, here, take this gold bar, take this lesson, you guys are better off actually taking the lesson because it's going to be more valuable. And so, first off, this is me. This is me at your guys' age, 25 years ago. So, and I looked around the room and I don't see anyone with this haircut. And I know, because they don't make this haircut anymore. I don't think barbers really won't do this anymore.
Is that your 6th grade picture?
What's that? 6th grade, yeah. That's 6th grade. You guys are in 7th grade, right? Okay, so I'm a little bit younger than this picture, but yeah, that's me, you guys. I was here. I spent 9 years here, so I've gone to all the same buildings that you guys go to. There's some new ones here, but for the most part, it all kind of looks the same. You know, Dr. Cohn. These are some of the same teachers here. It's awesome. So yeah, so even though that some of the landscape here has changed, I know what hasn't changed is just the caliber of instructors and the students, and just like the things they teach you here. Like, it's been instrumental. You know, this is 25 years ago, and I still remember the name of every teacher I ever had here. You know, they made an impact. And so this is me. I just wanted to show you guys that I'm no different than you guys are. This is the one slide I'll do on my background, and then we'll go into some of these lessons. But basically, after All Saints, I graduated in 1989. I went down the street to Brophy High School. Did 4 years there. That was an amazing school. Loved it. Would not trade that experience for anything. And then I went on to another school that has a logo with a tower in it, and it was called Trinity University. And this is in San Antonio, Texas. And I did 4 years there. I studied psychology, and about my junior year through that school, I realized that I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I guess I still don't know what I want to do, but I know that entrepreneurship is a big part of my life. But I know that psychology was just like the most fascinating thing I'd ever studied in my life. It's like, to me, we spend all this time, you know, there's astronomers looking way out there, and there's like scientists who are looking under microscopes, and people who are like exploring the bottom of the ocean and planets. And it's like, to me, like, what's up here is the last frontier. Like, we have no idea how our brains work. And so I was just fascinated by psychology. So I studied that at Trinity. About my junior year, I also got really interested in the internet. And you know, Dr. Cohn taught me computers in 2nd grade. And some of the same things, you know, I used to write DOS programs on an Apple II Plus computer. And some of these concepts, I realized that computers were a fundamental part of me. I was fascinated with computers as well. But I had no idea how this stuff meshed together, like psychology and computers. What does that have anything to do with each other? But I just knew that like this is something I needed to follow. And so I talked my way into a job at GoodNet. That's the company on the left. Over a summer, I was just working, and I basically started out as an intern. I had no idea what I was doing. I knew that I could type pretty fast. And so I just kind of talked my way into a job there and figured it out and learned how to code. And just gradually taught myself more and more about computer programming. I went back, finished school, and then came back and worked at the AZ Central, the newspaper. They were just getting started with their online department, so I did that for a while. I then went to a startup called iTool, and you can see there's like a chain of other companies I worked for a while between those 2 lines. And then I realized that I'm better at working for myself. I'm not a fan of working for other people. I like working for myself. So everything below that line are the companies that I started. Actually, I started that big bus right there. It's a 40-foot bus that my brother and I bought, and we turned it into a party bus company. We ran that for a while. That was very interesting. I did Lights Out Production was a consulting company I started. I did about 2 years of consulting under that. I then went, in 2006, we started a company called Jumpbox, which is still around today. It's now, I guess, almost 7 years old. But we're the largest provider of what are called virtual appliances for Amazon, for VMware, and for Parallels, 3 different companies. So that was a really interesting company. It was my first products company. I'd only done services before that, so this was the first product that I ever made. After that one, I went and did a year doing this music company called Scratch Audio, where we wrote, essentially, you guys know what Google Docs is?
Yes.
So we essentially wrote the Google Docs of audio, a computer online service that would allow anyone in the world to go in and record like a guitar part, and then send a link to their friend, and then go and record some vocals on it, and then send it to a third friend, and they record the bass. And so we made it possible for people to collaborate all around the world and make songs together. So after that one, I did a company called Short Salepedia. It's the tongue twister. And this was a result, actually, of a personal experience that I went through with my own home. And we'll talk about this in the very end. But I spent the last year building that up, and we made a resource for other people that were in situations with distressed housing. And Arizona is particularly hit pretty hard by the whole housing crunch. And so we're kind of in the epicenter of here. But that's what that company was. And then today, I'm doing something called Grid 7. This is a pretty recent company, but I'm really passionate about this one. It's about helping small businesses succeed using everything I've learned about sales and marketing automation, lean startup consulting, and all the stuff that I've learned over the years. You guys have any questions so far on this stuff? Okay. All right, so what I want to talk to you guys first about, the first of these 5 gold bars. You guys realize we have the world's most powerful land-based telescope. It's only a couple hours away from here. It's actually in Arizona. It's the Mount Graham International Observatory. It's in Safford, Arizona. If you were to go drive towards Globe and then just keep going, you'd hit it in about 3 hours. So this is the most powerful land-based telescope. The only one more powerful is the Hubble Space Telescope, and that's because it's outside of our atmosphere. What is different? You guys have seen a lot of telescopes, I'm sure, from pictures. What's different about this one? Yeah?
It's kind of like a box shape.
It's a box shape, kind of looks like a face. What else?
It's gigantic.
It is gigantic. What else? What looks unique about this? Yeah?
It looks like it has 2 scopes.
There you go. Bingo. Right? Those are giant mirrors right there, and there's 2 of them. Now, why does this matter? Right? Most telescopes you see, there's a long tube. You got nothing through them, a long tube. This one has 2 mirrors here. So what is unique about this? What does this give us? What's the title of the slide? Perspective, right? It gives us 2 angles on the object. And so what I've realized is that the more perspective you guys can get on things, the better. Try to seek out different angles on life. And you just heard from Kelsey here, she was talking like all those slides, going to Katrina and going to all these places around the world and helping people. She got a massively different perspective than most people ever have. And to the extent you guys can seek out different perspective, it makes you a broader person. So here's another way to put it. What is this? It's an iceberg, right? When you're coming at an iceberg in a boat, what does it look like? What are you going to see? Just the top, right? But have you guys heard the phrase the tip of the iceberg? You know that 90% of icebergs are underwater. You don't see them unless you're in a submarine or scuba dive. But it takes getting this combination of perspectives here. We're at a unique perspective in that we see, we're at the water level, so we see above and below to actually see the whole picture. And I'm just going to show you one of the experiences that I had down in Ecuador. I actually did an exchange program where I went down to Quito, Ecuador, and I lived there for 6 months. And this picture is of me. It's taken on the beach at Crucita, Ecuador. This is me flying what's called a paraglider about 10 seconds after launching off of a sand dune. And you talk about a change in perspective. I'm going to show you this next picture. It's going to blow your mind. So this is about 30 minutes later. This is one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. That's me about 1,000 feet up above the ocean, flying a paraglider, following seagulls, because they know how to get lift. So I had to follow the seagulls to figure out how to go up. And I don't even know if you can see it from this, but right here there's a little, yeah, I don't know if you can even see it. Yeah, there it is. That's another paraglider about 600 feet down. It was incredible, you guys. This is like mind-blowing on top of mind-blowing. The fact that I'm 1,000 feet up following seagulls is kind of crazy in itself, but I'm also in a foreign country, living with a family, speaking a language that, you know, a foreign language, with 17 other travelers I'd never met before on this exchange program. You talk about a different perspective on the world. You know, I learned more in those 6 months than I have probably in any other period of my life, and that's because I forcibly changed my perspective. So that's perspective, that's gold bar number 1. So gold bar number 2, let's talk about surface area. What organ is that? Lungs, right? And what do the lungs do? Respiratory, oxygen, right? So did you guys know that, do we have any tennis players in here? You play tennis?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Next time you're out on the tennis court, next time you're on a tennis court, look at your side of the court, and that's the surface area of your lungs. You guys know that? It's 750 square feet is the average surface area of the adult lungs. So maybe you guys are like not quite adults yet, but the average adult has 750 square feet of surface area in their lungs. It's crazy, right? Now, why do I bring this up? Like, what's important about surface area? It gives you the ability to think about what our lungs do. They take oxygen out of the air and they exchange carbon dioxide and nitrogen and off-gas the waste products, right? As efficient as our lungs are, they need this massive amount of surface area. They need all this exposure to the air to be able to do this effectively. And you guys have surface area in your lives, kind of the same way. Like you do things like you play tennis, and what are some other sports that you guys play? Football. Who else? Baseball. Okay, so you guys do some other, what are some other things you do after school? Anyone do like volunteer groups or like chess clubs or other things, other after school activities? Like all this stuff is surface area. And the more stuff you do, it's like having more surface area in your lungs. It gives you more exposure to just the air, to the world, to things going on. And just give yourself more surface area every chance you get. If someone asks you to like go to lunch with a new group of people, do it, because it gives you more surface area. I'm going to show you, this is a trip that I did a couple of years ago when we were first starting up Jumpbox, my company. I actually just literally packed up my truck. You can see in the upper right, that's my truck. I just put a sleeping bag and a bunch of clothes and just kind of drove off to San Francisco and figured it out. And I put myself in contact with a lot of different people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. I just went and figured it out and stayed on people's couches and found a way to get in contact with all the people that I wanted to meet, and it increased my surface area. Because that in the upper left, that's one of the very first startup weekends. It's now a worldwide thing. I think there's some crazy million number of people that have gone through it. I was at one of the very first ones, met the guy who started it, and have become good friends with him since. The picture to the right is me on Sand Hill Road. It's where all the venture capitalists are in Silicon Valley. I went out on that trip not knowing a single soul out there, and ended up pitching 14 venture capitalists by the end of it. And that's because I just created surface area, and I got out there and I made myself available, and I just put myself in contact with those people. Those guys, that's Wayne Crosby and Robbie Walker on the middle lower left. That's at Google headquarters. I found out you're not supposed to take pictures at Google, but I didn't know that. So, those guys were actually from Arizona, but they invented the thing that's now Google Presenter. It was called Zenter back in the day, but it's part of Google Docs now. Lower left, that's Mark Fletcher. He's one of my heroes of the internet. And through just a random connection, just this whole concept of surface area and serendipity, I was able to go and have dinner with him. And this is someone that I looked up to, someone who started companies like eGroups and Bloglines and some of these major internet companies. And here I am just chilling with them because I went out and exposed surface area. And then on the lower right, that's actually us in the boardroom of Mayfield, one of the venture capitalists, one of the tier 1 topmost venture capitalists pitching our company. So the reason that I think this is important, these are 2 books that I don't know, has anyone read one of these? It would be really weird if you guys have, but okay. These are awesome books, but very, had a huge impact on how I think. And the concept of a black swan, this is why this is important. So, because we go through life and we focus on this little band of things that happens in our daily lives, right? Like you kind of know, even though things, like there's new events and stuff, you kind of know what tomorrow is going to be like. And so life comes at us like this, right? It's like in this little narrow band, there's a little bit of variability, and then all of a sudden, bam, something happens outside the normal variation. And it's those events, they call those black swans. It's these events that really change us and push us forward. And so the whole point of surface area is, to the extent you can expose yourself to those events and create more likelihood of them occurring, you're gonna have more likelihood of these shortcuts and these rapid advances happening. And I mean, Dr. Kuhn's in the background, she'll appreciate this. It's an illustration from one of my favorite books, and I know it's one of her favorite books as well, A Wrinkle in Time. And you get these little shortcuts where, you know, you're this ant on a string walking, it takes a long time, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's like pulling the ends of the strings together and jumping across. And so those shortcuts happen the more surface area you create. All right, so does anyone have a blog in here? Anyone write a blog other than the teachers? All right, I can't stress this enough. You guys, you all have stuff that you're interested in. You know, no doubt. We've got tennis players, we've got baseball, football, and all these things going on. You guys start a blog. If you do one thing after today, I wish like at least one or two people in here would just start a blog. I promise you, it will be the most transformative thing you can do. I have met people, here I'll show you the stats from my blog. So I've had a blog for the last 6 years. I don't know if you can see that from there, but I've had almost 500,000 people come to my website. I write about things I care about, things that interest me, observations, just random stuff that I'm into. But I've met people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. I've influenced nearly 500,000 folks. And where else can you say that you're going to be able to have that level of impact, right? And it's free. You just start a blog. Anyone can do it. So anyways, that's enough on surface area. Let's talk about the next one. This is gold bar number 3. And I put a picture of Iron Man here because this is kind of how I think about this one. But curiosity, you guys. Has anyone seen the movie Iron Man? Okay, wow. All right, everyone. Remember that power source, that little glowing thing that like powers the suit? To me, that's your curiosity. You guys, like, what are you curious about? What are you curious about? What do you think about? Is there anything that just fascinates you, or what? Not so much? Well, I don't want to pick on you, so if you have something, does anyone have something that they're just super curious about? What are you curious about?
Like military defense with electronics.
Military defense.
With electrons.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else? You?
Flight,
Flight.
yeah,
Awesome.
amazing.
So we should chat afterwards, because I So these are the things, we got one more. Right here.
Like what's outside of the university?
Awesome. Yes. I've got some documentary suggestions for you, because I'm fascinated by that as well. But yeah, you guys, we all have stuff that we're curious about. Like, these are the things, though, that it's, to me, it's like the universe going like this to you. It's like, well, explore more about this, right? Like, we need you guys to be curious about stuff. And you guys, like, there are some problems that are coming down the road that are only going to be solved through curiosity and through your guys' ability to think differently than everyone else who's come before you. And so I put a slide here. This is a young guy. He's 15 years old, recently won the National Science Foundation award. He developed a diagnostic test for pancreatic cancer that is, I don't know if you can read this, but it's 400 times more accurate, 168 times faster, and get this, 26,667 times cheaper than the current diagnostic test. This kid is 15 years old. He's probably 1 year ahead of you guys, 1 or 2 years ahead. He developed this because he was fascinated by carbon nanotubes. You know, I can't even tell you what carbon nanotubes are. I was trying to read about them and understand them, and I know that they're these little microscopic things, and that he figured out some way that the charges change when they come into contact with the protein that indicates that someone has pancreatic cancer. I know, right? Way over my head. But this kid's 15 and he developed that because he was curious. He was like fascinated by it. He couldn't stop thinking about carbon nanotubes. And when you do that, you stay fascinated by stuff. You start to explore and learn things that no one else is going to see because you're just like turning it around in your mind and focusing on it and thinking about it and bringing in different outside experiences that other people don't have. So the other thing with curiosity is the poem Robert Frost. I'm sure you guys have all heard it. It's two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. You guys go off road. Don't stay on the roads. Like explore your curiosity. All right. Number 4, questions. I don't know. Does Mrs. Lipscomb still teach her? No, no longer. So Mrs. Lipscomb was my 5th grade teacher, and she had a sign up in her classroom. I'll never forget it. It said, "I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what and where and when and how and why and who." Right? So those are the 6 questions that you guys can ask to satisfy your curiosity. If you're going to focus on any one of these questions, which one do you think you should focus on? What's the most important question that you can answer?
Why?
There you go. Ready? Why? If you have to focus on one question, you guys, and here's why you focus on the why. You guys know those boxes, those cardboard boxes you get like at U-Haul if you're moving stuff and you fold them, but you have to put them together and the flaps come down like this and they all kind of interlock. You know what I'm talking about? Right? So the why to me is like all those flaps, you know how it's just like it doesn't work at first and you're like, how is this even possible? How does this come together? But eventually you get them to the point where then they all kind of like compress under their own weight and they just fold into place. You guys, once you get the why firmly understood, everything else just has a way of coming together. You'll figure out the other question. And if this doesn't make sense now, it will. But like focus on the why. All right, so this is probably my favorite scientist. His name is Richard Feynman. He's a physicist. He's credited with quantum computing, theoretical physics, nanotechnology. This guy is like major. He won the Nobel Prize in 1965, and he was also just like a really funny and awesome guy. But he is what he is, or he was what he was, because he just always kept asking why and challenging things and going beyond what the current understanding was. So be like Richard Feynman. All right, so the last of these 5 we're going to talk about is assumptions. Has anyone seen this puzzle before? Do you know what I'm going to ask you? All right, so the people that have seen it, don't spoil it. But how, someone tell me how with 4 straight lines you can connect all these dots. And I'll give you like 15 seconds to kind of look at it and think about it. Is it possible, first of all? Can you take 4 lines and connect all these dots?
Yes.
It's possible. It is possible. Okay. So who wants to tell me how it works? Go ahead.
Okay, so you go diagonal, like make an X, one up, one across.
So,
2 diagonal, 1 down, 1 across.
so tell me where to start and where to go.
Go diagonal for the next 3.
Uh-huh.
Now stop, that's 1 line. Go to the top left,
Uh-huh.
another 1 diagonal.
Uh-huh.
That's 2. Start at the bottom, middle. Oh, I was thinking of.
Sorry. So you can't lift up your pen. You gotta do it 4 consecutive strokes. Anyone know? Watch this. Now, what did you guys assume about that problem? Right? Did I ever say you guys had to stay inside the box? No. Right? And that, have you guys heard the phrase, think outside the box? Right? This is actually where that phrase comes from. It's because people, we operate in this mindset when we're given a problem and say, oh, we got to stay inside the box. But I never said you had to stay inside the box. You guys go outside the lines. And this is what I mean by assumptions. What are some other bad assumptions? I put these 2 up here. Right? I don't know if you guys can all see that. So who solved that one? Right? When Christopher Columbus set out, people told me it's crazy. They said you're going to fall off the edge of the world. It's flat. But we now know that's nuts. It's not flat. It's a sphere. But it's not a bad assumption. If you go outside and you look in every direction, it looks pretty flat, right? What's another one? The world is flat and that we are the center of it. People used to think that we were at the very center of the universe, that the sun revolved around us. It was called geocentric theory, and it was pre-Copernicus. Once this guy Copernicus kind of looked at the stars and figured it out, then it became pretty obvious that, oh yeah, we're not at the center of the world. But before that, not only was it not obvious, it was like challenging the church, and it was like punishable by death. So bad assumptions, you guys, question assumptions. Things that people tell you and that you take for granted, challenge them. All right, so how are we doing on time?
You're doing very well, thank you.
Okay, so if we got a few more minutes, we got a couple more minutes? All right, so I lied. There's actually, I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. So, and these are the biggest ones, so pay attention on these. But you guys still take Scantron tests?
Yeah.
You sound pretty enthusiastic about it. You guys, I've got news for you. Life is not a Scantron. I'm sure you already know this, but those bubbles, I understand we need standardized testing right now. Hopefully someday that will change. But Scantrons, I have never once solved a problem that was a multiple choice problem since college. Of all those businesses that were up on the board, we didn't have any fill in the blank or bubble coding Scantron problems. This is a quote that I really like. It's by an author that I really like, Ray Bradbury. This is a preface to Fahrenheit 451, which if you guys haven't read that book, you probably will. You have it, you're not in yet. Okay, awesome, you guys have read that book. You guys are like ahead of the game. But the preface to that book says, when they give you lined paper, write the other way. And I like that because you guys, a lot of the systems, a lot of the just life, these assumptions and these lines and these things that we're told to write within, it's just arbitrary. Like the people that figure out how to write the other way are at a big advantage. So when you see lined paper, turn it the other way and just color outside the lines. And then the last thing, this is by a guy that I really admire. His name's Derek Sivers. He started a company called CD Baby for musicians. Later sold it, and he lives in Singapore now, and he's made a ton of money. But super zen, like Buddhist guy. And I don't know if you can read the quote, but this notion of flip the stick is, you guys heard of the phrase, like you get the crummy end of the stick. Basically, you get hosed on a deal. There's a situation where you just, I don't know, you end up losing. He says that everything that seems depressing can be flipped to work in your favor. This idea of flip the stick, and it's also what they call like find the silver lining. You know, clouds, even the dark clouds, when the sun's behind it, they have a silver lining, they say. In my situation, this came in the form of losing my house. I actually lost that company Short Sale PD that I told you about a couple of years ago. Had to go through the process of a short sale, which if any of you know what that is, it's a not fun process by which you lose your house. And I went through that, but I vowed to fix all the problems with that. And so we created an entire company around fixing that process. And this is an article that aired in the Arizona Republic almost a year to the day. I don't know if you can read it, but it says, "Man Short Sales for his website to help others." There's a whole article that got written just on how we took that bad situation and turned lemons into lemonade, basically, and made the best out of it. And so as you approach problems, things that seem to be really crummy, if you can look at them and think about it, how can I flip this? Like, there is some good in every crummy situation. How can I look at this differently and flip it and turn it into something good? And to the extent you can do that, then it'll be awesome. So here's the recap. We'll go seek out different perspectives, increase your surface area, follow your curiosity, especially when you're unsure. Focus on the why, question your assumptions. Life is not a Scantron. And flip the stick when you can. So that's all I got. You guys, you have any questions? Anyone questions? Okay, well, that's my contact info if you guys want anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is this your last company?
Absolutely not. No, there will be many
I knew
more,
that.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys for listening.